Everyone at the busy marketing office in Lagos called her Ghost Girl. Her name was Nia, but hardly anyone used it. She was quiet, almost invisible. She never joined in conversations or laughed at jokes. She only spoke when someone asked her something directly, and even then, her voice was barely above a whisper. Every week, she wore the same faded blue dress at least twice. Some of her coworkers whispered about it, wondering if she had no other clothes. During lunch breaks, while others laughed and gossiped, Nia sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, slowly eating her food with her eyes always fixed on her lap. She never looked up, never interrupted, never tried to fit in. People made fun of how silent and strange she seemed. They thought she was weird, boring, even a little creepy. But Nia never reacted. She moved through each day like a shadow, quiet, calm, and unnoticed. No one knew where she lived, who her friends were, or what she did after work. Some said she was too shy. Others said she was just odd. But no one really cared to know her story. To them, she was just the nobody in the corner, the girl who didn't belong, the one they could ignore. What they didn't know was that the quiet girl they laughed at was hiding something powerful. Something they would never expect. At the office, Nia was the one everyone laughed at. She didn't dress like the others, didn't laugh at their jokes, and didn't join their gossip. That made her different, and to them, different was funny. They started calling her names behind her back. Some called her Ghost Girl because she was so quiet. Others said she was creepy, always walking around like a shadow. But the worst part? They didn't stop at whispers. One day, someone found her old photo online. They photoshopped her face onto silly memes and cartoons. They put her head on a ghost's body, on a chicken, even on a crying baby. Then they shared them in the office group chat, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. Some even made stickers of her face with fake quotes like, "Can I sit alone forever?" and "Silence is my best friend." They laughed during lunch. They laughed in meetings. Even when she passed by their desks, they giggled and hid their phones. Nia knew. She saw the looks. She heard the whispers. She heard them say, "She's too weird," or "Maybe she doesn't even have a home." But she never reacted. She kept walking, her eyes down, her face calm. Then one day, she finally spoke. Just a small request. She asked a teammate if they could help her with a report. Her voice was soft, careful, polite. But instead of helping her, the coworker repeated her words in a silly, baby-like voice, mocking the way she spoke. The others around him burst into laughter. Some clapped. Some even recorded it on their phones. Nia just stood there, quiet, as if nothing had happened. She gave a small nod and walked away. No anger. No tears. Just silence. Behind her, the laughter continued. They called her the mute boss, the sad girl, and even joked about starting a fake fundraiser to buy her new clothes. Nia heard it all. Every word, every laugh. And yet, she never said a single thing in return. She came to work every day on time. She finished her tasks early. She never missed a deadline. She answered emails politely. She never fought back. But what they didn't know was that Nia was not weak. She wasn't clueless. She wasn't broken. She was watching. Listening. Waiting. Not for pity. Not even for revenge. She was just choosing silence. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because she knew one day, she wouldn't need to explain anything. One day, everything would speak for itself. So while they laughed, she listened. And every cruel joke was like a note in a song she was quietly composing. A song that no one expected her to play. But soon, they'd all hear it, loud and clear. It started like any other day at the office. People were chatting, joking, and pretending to work while really just trying to pass time. As always, Nia sat at her desk quietly, typing away, minding her own business. She never bothered anyone. She didn't join their loud conversations or lunchtime gossip. That's why they called her names like Ghost Girl or Mute Boss. To them, she was the perfect target, too quiet to fight back, too kind to cause a scene. That afternoon, the group of regular bullies gathered around the break room table, laughing about their latest joke. They had already made memes with Nia's face, laughed at the way she dressed, and even mocked her voice. But now they wanted something bigger, something more funny. One of them looked at the new intern, a young guy who had only been there for a few weeks, and said, "We dare you to ask Nia out on a date." The others joined in, clapping and cheering. "Yes. Tell her you like her. Make it sound real. Let's see if she's dumb enough to believe it." The intern looked nervous, but he didn't want to look weak. So he smiled and said, "Challenge accepted." A few hours later, when most of the office was around, the intern stood up and walked to Nia's desk. She looked up, surprised. Everyone went quiet, watching like it was a show. The intern smiled and said loudly, "Hey, Nia. I've been thinking about you for a while. I like you. Would you go out with me sometime?" The room froze. For a second, no one said anything. Nia looked at him, her eyes confused. Her face was calm but uncertain. She studied his face, trying to see if he meant it. She didn't smile, but she gave a small nod and quietly said, "Okay." And then, just like that, he stepped back, raised his hands, and shouted, "She actually said yes. You guys owe me lunch." Laughter exploded across the office. People clapped, some doubled over with laughter. "Oh my God, she believed you," one shouted. Another said, "That was too easy." Phones were out. Some recorded the moment. Others just watched with wide grins. But Nia didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood up slowly, looked at the intern for a second, then looked around at every person laughing at her like she was a joke. Her face didn't change. No anger. No pain. Just silence. She picked up her bag, walked to the door, and left without saying a single word. The laughter faded slowly. A few people kept giggling, but something about her calm walkout made the room feel heavier than before. Maybe it didn't go the way they expected. Maybe it wasn't as funny as they thought. But Nia wasn't broken. She wasn't weak. That moment didn't destroy her, it revealed who they were. And she saw it all. Every face. Every cruel laugh. Every fake friend. They thought they won. They thought they were smart. But they didn't know Nia had already decided this wasn't her ending. She wasn't done. She was just getting started. It was just another Monday morning. The office buzzed with usual chatter, keyboard sounds, and the clinking of coffee mugs. The incident with Nia had already become old news. People had returned to their routines, laughing about new gossip, while some still passed quiet jokes about the prank played on her. No one had seen her since that day. Most assumed she had quit out of shame. Nobody really cared to check. That was the kind of place it was, cold smiles and fake kindness. Then, without warning, everything stopped. The hum of conversations faded as a deep, smooth engine sound echoed from outside. Curious faces turned toward the window. There it was. A black Maybach. Sleek. Shiny. Expensive. The kind of car that didn't just arrive, it announced. People stood up, walked over to get a better look. "Who's that?" someone asked. "Maybe a celebrity," another guessed. Everyone stared, their mouths slightly open. Then the door opened. And out stepped a man dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. He wore sunglasses and walked like someone who was never in a hurry, but always in control. It took only a second for people to recognize him. Taro Koye. The name alone brought silence. The youngest billionaire in Nigeria. A tech genius. Owner of companies across the globe. And most importantly, the CEO of the very company that owned their marketing firm. No one had ever seen him in person. His photos lived on Forbes covers and magazine interviews. But today, he was walking toward their office. The receptionist nearly dropped her cup as he entered. She stood up quickly and said, "Good morning, sir. Do you have an appointment?" Her voice was shaky. "I know where I'm going," Tari said calmly, walking right past her. He didn't stop. He didn't smile. And he didn't need to ask for directions. His steps were slow, steady, and filled with power. Every eye in the office followed him. People straightened their backs, closed useless tabs, and tried to look busy. But it was no use. He noticed everything. Tari walked past the desks of the same people who had mocked Nia. Past the intern who had pretended to like her just for laughs. Past the loud whisperers who thought their words never reached her ears. And with every step, the air grew heavier. Jokes died on tongues. Smiles faded. No one knew why he was there. Was the company shutting down? Was someone getting fired? Was it about a failed project? He reached the middle of the office and stopped. Silence. He looked around slowly. Not rushing. Not speaking. Just watching. And in that moment, they realized something. He wasn't here to talk about business. He was here for something else. Something personal. Something important. Because men like Tari Okoye didn't just show up at random. They arrived with purpose. And suddenly, everyone who had laughed at Nia, didn't feel like laughing anymore. The office was already on edge. No one could believe Tari Okoye, the billionaire CEO, had just walked in without warning. His presence alone made everyone nervous. Some tried to act busy, others whispered guesses about why he was there. But then, without any hesitation, he stood in the middle of the office and said 5 words that shook the entire room. "Where is my wife?" At first, it didn't make sense. People exchanged confused looks. Was he joking? Was he talking about someone else? They looked around the office, searching for someone to react. But no one moved. No one spoke. The room went completely silent. Some staff looked toward the door, others looked at each other, and a few looked like they had just seen a ghost. Then, she walked in. Nia. But this was not the quiet, shy Nia they used to ignore. She didn't look anything like the girl they called Ghost Girl. She didn't wear that old, faded dress anymore. She wasn't holding her lunch in a plastic bag. No. Nia walked in wearing a long, elegant designer gown. It shimmered under the lights. Her makeup was flawless, her hair done perfectly, and her heels clicked against the office floor like thunder. Everyone stared. Her presence was powerful, confident, bold, and unshakable. Her eyes were calm, not a trace of fear or sadness. She walked straight toward Tari, and the way he looked at her, with pride, with love, it told the whole truth. Nia was his wife. Gasps echoed across the room. Mouths dropped open. The very same woman they had mocked, laughed at, ignored, was married to the CEO. The same woman they humiliated in front of everyone was the queen beside the most powerful man they knew. Suddenly, the jokes weren't funny anymore. The intern who tricked her on that fake date turned pale. His hands trembled. The girls who spread gossip about her in group chats tried to look away. The manager who once mocked her voice now looked like he couldn't breathe. One brave soul whispered, "We didn't know." Tari turned sharply. His face was calm, but his eyes were ice cold. "No," he said firmly. "You didn't care to know." Everyone froze. "You thought she was nobody," he continued, "because she didn't fight back. Because she was quiet. But silence is not weakness. She watched you. She heard every word. And so did I. Tari stepped back and turned to Nia. She looked around the room slowly. Her eyes met the faces of every person who ever treated her badly. No hate. No anger. Just calm. Powerful calm. Then, she smiled. Just a small, quiet smile. But that smile held everything: strength, peace, and dignity. She had never been the weak one. They were. They laughed while she listened. They judged what they didn't understand. And now, their masks had fallen. She wasn't the girl in the corner anymore. She was the woman who rose. The one they tried to break, but couldn't. And she wasn't just back. She was standing in power. Right next to the man who loved her all along. The office was dead silent. No one moved. No one even breathed too loudly. Tari Okoye stood tall beside Nia, his face serious, his eyes sharp. Every person in that room could feel something coming, but none of them were ready for it. They watched him, hoping maybe it was all just a warning, that maybe they would be forgiven. But deep down, they knew. The moment he asked, "Where is my wife?" and Nia walked in like a queen, everything had changed. Then, without raising his voice, Tari began to speak. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. But every word hit like thunder. "You," he said, pointing at the intern who had tricked Nia with that cruel, fake date. "You think it's funny to play with people's hearts for a dare? You're done here. Get out." The intern's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His face turned red, then white. He picked up his bag with shaky hands and slowly walked out. Tari turned to the group of girls who used to make jokes, create memes, and whisper about Nia in the bathroom. "And you three," he said calmly. "You turned her into your personal joke. You created a toxic space where cruelty was normal. Not anymore. You're fired." They gasped. One tried to apologize, tears already in her eyes, but Tari didn't even look at her again. He continued walking through the office, calling out names, one by one. You laughed when she asked for help. You mocked her clothes. You stood by and did nothing. Each time, he pointed without mercy. Each time, a person stood, embarrassed and speechless, grabbing their things while everyone watched in stunned silence. "You forgot something important," he said finally, turning back to the room. "You forgot that kindness matters. That silence doesn't mean weakness. You thought her quietness made her invisible. But she saw you. And so did I." Then, he looked at Nia. He smiled, the first soft moment since he walked in. "From today," he said, "she's your new boss." Gasps filled the air again. People looked at Nia with shock, fear, and some, with guilt. The same woman they treated like she didn't matter, was now in charge. Nia took one step forward. Her voice was soft, but clear. "I stayed quiet because I chose peace," she said, looking around. "But peace is not permission. You laughed at me, called me names, treated me like I was less. And I still wished you well." She paused. "But now it's time for something new. A place where people are respected. Where kindness wins. And where silence is not weakness, it's strength." She looked around once more, then added, "If you're still here tomorrow, it means you're ready to build that with me. But if you're part of the past, today was your last day. No shouting. No revenge. Just truth." And with that, Nia turned and walked toward the office at the top, where the boss sits. The woman they once laughed at had now become their leader. And nobody was laughing anymore. Nia stood tall in the center of the office, dressed with grace, power, and elegance. Her presence was calm but commanding. The same people who once made her feel small were now the ones who couldn't meet her eyes. She looked at them, one by one, the intern who humiliated her for fun, the coworkers who spread cruel jokes, the manager who ignored her like she didn't matter. None of them could speak. Their guilt was heavy. Their shame was louder than anything she could say. But Nia didn't shout. She didn't insult. She didn't try to embarrass them the way they did to her. Instead, she gave them something they never gave her, dignity. She took a breath, then smiled, soft, but strong. Then in a clear voice, quiet enough to feel personal, she said, "You laughed at my silence, but it was just me choosing peace over pettiness." No one responded. Some lowered their heads. Others blinked fast to stop tears. Her words weren't loud, but they echoed deeply. Because in that moment, everyone understood, she could have fought back. She could have exposed them. But she chose not to. Not because she was weak, but because she had self-control. Because she knew who she was, even when they didn't. Nia didn't need revenge. Her success, her strength, her peace, that was the real victory. And as she turned to walk into her new office, heels tapping with quiet power, not one person could forget her voice, because this time, it was heard.